Hello, Soul Family. I am Shannon Pardini, and I'm with Quantum Heart Conversations. And today I'm here with my favorite guest, Leanne Venier. Leanne is the pioneer in the science behind the healing effects of color and light. She has created an incredible healing and age reversal device. It's called the REDjuvenator. And again, if you want to hear more specifics, we did touch upon that on our last podcast covering the color red. Today's topic, we're going to go deep on the color of orange and yellow. Leanne is sharing around the spleen in the stomach area with these colors.
Okay, thank you. And I always love being here and chatting with you and sharing all this information with your followers, and my followers will be sharing it with mine as well. Okay, so just to give a little bit of background about myself, which is extensive, but we'll do the soundbite version. So I used to be an engineer designing submarines. I left that world, moved to Italy for 7 years, studied all kinds of alternative healing modalities, including the chakra system and all kinds of things tied in with the colors and how our bodies utilize those color energies. Came back to the United States, studied more on that, went back to school for acupuncture and Zen Shiatsu, became an Eastern medicine physician, worked with patients, had a cancer healing facility in Canada, and then came back to the United States. I moved around a lot, but my emphasis with my Eastern medicine training was, again, about color and light and how we utilize those color frequencies, and then the specific energy systems in our bodies and how they respond to these different color frequencies. So after I had done the one-on-one healing work for so many years, I started painting as a creative outlet. The paintings became a catalyst for having conversations about the healing effects of color and light. Within the first few months of just starting painting as a beginner painter, I got so much recognition for my work because I was creating them in flow state, and became an international award-winning professional artist in that within a few months. Is very weird trajectory, but the purpose of becoming a professional artist, which I realized later, was to be able to have these conversations about the healing effects of color and light, which when people would see my paintings, they would have very strong responses to the color in the paintings. And they would say things like, oh my God, I can't stop staring at your paintings or your blue paintings or your teal paintings, or whatever particular color they were strongly drawn to. And then I would tell them, well, if you're really strongly drawn to that color, it might mean that you have this going on in your body and this going on in your life. And every time they'd be like, oh my God, that's exactly what's going on in my body and my life. How do you know that? And because I'd created this way of diagnosing people based on the colors that they were particularly drawn to. So 3 years of pestering from people to put some of this information on my website, because they're like, where's the book? And I'm like, this isn't a book. This is like literally hundreds of books, and me cross-connecting all of these different healing modalities and then bringing in scientific research to support it. So after 3 years of pestering, I finally put some information on my website thinking, okay, well, good. Now, there you go. You got it. And that then just became the catalyst for getting contacted by major medical universities, medical organizations, medical conferences, other conferences like biohacking conferences, to come and lecture and teach about the science behind the healing effects of color and light, which then catapulted that into the light therapy industry that you're now seeing today. So I kind of created this whole thing because I validated the science behind the healing effects of color and light. Then everybody and their brother started selling these light therapy devices on the internet. And so just 6 years ago, I ended up launching my own product line in response to the fact that so many of those devices that are out there don't actually work, and a lot of them make you worse. So I created a quantum healing device that has light therapy as a portion of its full healing formulation. And that's the REDjuvenator that tens of thousands of people, all from word of mouth, all around the globe, get to benefit from. So that, in a soundbite, is my background.
I'm glad you.
That's about as short as I can make it.
Right? Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I know, again, your history is It's fascinating, and it's something that you really stayed in your integrity with in deep focus, and the outcome has been, nothing short of miraculous, because you are helping so many heal at a very rapid rate. Like, really,
Mhm,
the biology of the body is magnificent and intelligent, and you created this
mhm,
intelligent device that, heals with ease and grace.
mhm.
Again, it's to do something like that, I applaud you. I know it works. I use it every day. And I know many people do. But
Mhm.
there is another podcast on Leanne's story, and I'll link it to this particular YouTube video. And yeah, let's go deep. Like, really, I'm excited to hear about orange and yellow. And
Okay.
you're obviously representing, which feels good.
I
Like, I
am.
can already look at the colors on
Sure
your
thing.
shirt
Yeah.
and tell that my body is in a little bit of depletion and needs it. So
Mhm.
I'll
You're
let
craving it.
you,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. So just as a little summary, which we talked about in the other one, just to understand color. Color, we evolved to live and thrive underneath the colors that are being emitted by sunlight. So if you know that sunlight, when you go out under sunlight, you think that you're being bathed in white light, but that white light is actually a combination of seven different, well, more than seven, but seven different categories of color: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. So every time you're out under sunshine, you are getting bathed in red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. You see a blue sky, but all those colors are within it. And the time that you can see all of those spectral colors is when there's a rainbow in the sky. So after it rains, for example, or even if you're spraying your garden hose in the sunshine, you can see those spectral colors that split up from the water droplets that are left either in the atmosphere or, where you're spraying your water hose. And those spectral colors, again, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, we evolved to live and thrive under sunshine. So when you're not getting sunshine, you are missing out on so many vital nutrients that are healing for our physical bodies, our psyches, our energy bodies, and we need all of those color frequencies. So it's not just about getting vitamin D production from the sun, which is also important, but that comes from the UVB. But the color frequencies that come from sunlight are an integral part of, they should be an integral part of your daily diet, just like food and water. But so many people avoid sunshine because they've been led to believe by the media, which is controlled by big pharma, by the way, that sunshine is going to give you cancer. And it's actually the polar opposite is true. The more you avoid sunshine, the more your probability of getting cancer or any kind of illness, disease, heart disease, I mean, you name it. I mean, there's direct scientific research that shows these correlations. Avoidance of sunshine, less sunshine, more illness, disease, more all-cause mortality. So again, we're going back to just that's the overview of sunshine. Why do we respond to these colors? And you probably have the experience of seeing colors in your environment, or like you looking at my orange sweater right now and feeling like, oh, that's kind of like, I want to keep looking at it. So when we have that response, we see certain colors wherever it may be, and you're feeling particularly drawn to that color, you can actually diagnose yourself. So I've got a little blunder on my face. You can diagnose yourself and understand what's out of balance by the colors that you're actually feeling particularly drawn to. So last time we talked a lot about red. To give an energetic overview of those seven spectral color categories, again, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Red, orange, and yellow are all stimulating, energizing, uplifting colors. Green is a neutral energy color. Blue, indigo, and violet are calming, sedating. So if you think of red as the most energizing, orange, less energizing than red, less stimulating, and yellow, and orange obviously is a combination of red and yellow. So, and then green, neutral energy, then blue, indigo, violet, more and more calming, sedating. Okay, so that's kind of the in a nutshell. So we talked about red last time. Today we're going to talk about orange and yellow, which are also stimulating, energizing colors. And I always teach about the 5 element system as well. Orange and yellow together make up the color that represents and stimulates the earth element, which is spleen and stomach energy. So everything having to do with digestion, assimilation of nutrients from the food, also absorbing water and fluids and transforming fluids. That's spleen, stomach energy. Also cognitive function. So everything that has to do with brain fog, mental focus, clarity, or lack thereof. That has to do with spleen and stomach energy. So orange and yellow are really important colors for that. So if we're going to talk about orange in particular, so orange, and you probably have this, intuitive feeling when you look at the color orange. It's a playful, energizing color. It's like childlike, playful. That's why it's often used to represent things, like for children. In marketing, it will be used for that sort of thing. Sometimes if you want to convey the feeling of playfulness with your brand, you bring in some orange, but it's one of those that you have to be careful. If you go too much, it can be like too childlike, too playful, where if you don't want to use something like that with a serious, like insurance company, logo or something like that. But okay, so it's also orange stimulates resourcefulness, creativity, playfulness, like I said. And let me think, what are some of the other things that it's energizing, cheerful. It's not as stimulating as red. So in your home, in the kitchen, good colors for the kitchen, because you want that to be like an energizing place, social place. So orange is good for that, or for a living room, because it also makes you more sociable. It makes you more extroverted. We'll talk about yellow. I want to keep them a little bit separate. There's a fair amount of crossover because they are both spleen and stomach energy. When I'm talking about mental clarity, spleen, stomach energy is in charge of that. So if you think of, from what we used to know in Western thinking, the enteric brain, which is the gut brain. So when you get, information from your gut, that's like, it's sending information to your brain. The brain is like the processor. The brain doesn't think, it's not thinking. Like same thing with your computer.
Right.
Your computer CPU, that's processing data, but the data comes in from software and other places like that. It's probably not a very good analogy, but the way that we get information, and like, when you have a feeling about something, gut instinct, you know something that's coming, that information comes first to your gut and then gets processed by the brain. So it's an instantaneous kind of connection.
Well, what I love about that is how, again, intelligent the body is. The body it's picking up on the spectrum first, right? This isn't about the mental or the intellect. It's like the body's picking up on the feeling and, what it really is wanting on a cellular level. And then it kind of outputs. It's like, so it's fascinating to hear the process of it and even how we recognize, right? It's kind of the opposite of what one would think. And so when you see this, I think like what's interesting too, when you have seen clients in the past who are really depleted of the spleen energy, like how do you incorporate something like the orange to help with them? Is that even a process or?
Yeah. So, okay. Well, some of the things, okay, let me tell you what people typically that are deficient in spleen, stomach energy, they will have the type of symptoms that they'll experience. They'll have weight gain where they have a hard time losing weight. And it doesn't matter how much they diet. They can't lose weight. They'll gain weight and then they'll gain cellulite often in women or beer belly in men. That's because the spleen stomach energy is weak, so it's not assimilating nutrients from the food and it's not transforming fluids. So you're getting a buildup of, it often goes out of balance with liver gallbladder energy, which is about, clearing toxins from the system. So they're not working in conjunction with each other. One system breaks down and the other one starts to break down as well. So you start getting a buildup of toxic residue in the body. And then the spleen stomach energy isn't able to effectively get rid of that transform the fluids, take in nutrients from the foods. So people will often be eating, but they're hungry all the time because they're not, the foods that they're eating, they're not actually taking out the nutrients. So it's kind of like just passing through you. Some of the symptoms would be like constantly soft stools, or, you know, a lot of times people think that they have normal, you know, normal poop. And I ask them, it's like, no, they're normal. I go every day. And it's like, do they look like, we're going to get in a TMI situation here for some people, but this is my world. I talk about the pee and poop are really important pieces of information. You should be always looking at your poop. So, yeah. Western culture is like stigmatized. It's like, oh my God, you're talking about poop. You're
right?
asking
Shame, embarrassment around all the things that we
I
really
just flushed
do.
the toilet. What?
I said shame and
Sorry.
embarrassment, but it's really a, you know, these things are so critical to pay attention to, you know, especially if you
Yeah.
are having problems or insulin resistant, or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it is amazing
Yep.
as we age how much the body just, it can't function. It can't break down food. It's lack of, you know, the
Yeah.
acids and all that. But sorry,
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you keep
Yeah.
going with
No,
that.
no, but I mean that, and that's all downstream. So when people, you don't have enough stomach acid, you don't have
Right.
the gut bacteria, all that is like downstream from spleen, stomach energy being deficient in the first place. And then you get those symptomatic physical results that happen in the body that then cause problems. So people in Western thinking fixate on, oh, I need to take probiotics. I need to take, you know, I need to take an antacid. I need to, so they're constantly thinking they need to medicate themselves or take supplements or pills or potions. It's like, no, you just need to focus on getting the energy of the spleen stomach energy back on track again. So, and that's where orange and yellow, you know, those specific color frequencies target those energy systems. So, with the latest formulation that I just launched a handful of weeks ago, the REDjuvenator has yellow in it as part of the formulation. So it specifically targets spleen, stomach energy and liver gallbladder energy, those two systems that go out of balance hand in hand that are so common. So it's called the REDjuvenator. It's got green and yellow. So anyway, but going back to the spleen, stomach energy system, people will have a hard time losing weight. They'll gain more weight. They keep gaining more weight. It will turn into, like I said, beer belly or cellulite in women. And it's a combination of like toxic sludge from the body not getting rid of the toxins, and then also not transforming fluids in the body, that spleen, stomach energy, not taking in the nutrients from the food. So you end up craving more food. And people will often crave the sweet flavor, things that are sweet or that turn into sugar in the body, because the flavor of earth element is sweet. So like, for example, for conversely, the flavor of liver gallbladder energy is sour, but we'll talk about the sweet flavor today. So people will crave things like carbs, bread, pasta, which, you know, those things usually have a bunch of garbage in them, you know, because the refined wheat that's available in the United States, it's wheat. You can get healthier wheat in ancient grains, but most people don't know that. Most people eat, you know, the processed, super refined flours that are bleached, and then they're basically devoid of all nutrients because that makes them shelf stable. You take out the bran, and then it makes the flour last forever, and it makes these fluffy desserts and treats and stuff like that. But there's no nutritional value in them. So you're eating the stuff that turns into sugar in the body that has no nutritional value. Anything that's made with, you know, wheat, refined wheat products. And then on top of that, you have the Monsanto effect, which is glyphosate, which is most of the wheat that products, refined wheat flour products in the United States, and not just the United States, but it's really bad here, Canada also, are laden with glyphosate. So you're not only eating these empty calories that have no nutritional value that turn into sugar in the body, you're also getting all this toxic stuff from the glyphosate. Glyphosate is what's used on all of the wheat, you know, the plants, to kill any kind of insects or bugs or whatever. So the genetically modified wheat, which is the vast majority of wheat that is grown in the United States, is designed in a way to tolerate extremely high levels of toxic pesticides, including glyphosate. So every time you're eating those refined wheat flour products, you're eating a bunch of toxic pesticides at the same time. And again, this is the vast majority of stuff that's available in the United States. Got this little, he just keeps flying around. But there are healthier options. It's just like most people don't know that. So when spleen stomach energy is deficient, people will crave things that are either sweet with sugar in them, or they will crave things that turn into sugar in the body, which is like carbs and refined carbs, flour-based products, pasta, bread. What are some other things that are, sweets in general that also have added sugar? Those are kind of like, and then that exacerbates the spleen stomach energy deficiency even more, because now you're putting all this garbage into your body that is empty calories, but it causes these sugar spikes in your body. Then people will get very, very common when you get that far out of balance, they'll develop type 2 diabetes, which is dietary triggered diabetes, the kind that you're born with. It's the kind, so it's from these sugar spikes that you're constantly getting from eating things that turn into sugar in the body. And people will crave that. I want sweet stuff all the time, or I want comfort foods, or, like I said, the things that turn into sugar in the body. It may not be sugar, but usually those go hand in hand. So, and then all of the stuff
satiating. It's like, they'll fill their bodies up, but it's not satiating. It's not adding any nutritional value. And then they're in this looping cycle because you're still hungry. And then you wake up, your body feels like it needs food right away because you're stuck in this vicious cycle. So
exactly. Yeah.
So how would orange help? Like, I get that it's, spleen and stomach energy, but if we are on this vicious cycle, is there a way that we can incorporate that into our lives? If we don't have the REDjuvenator, what would be some of your best thoughts on, kind of using these colors to our advantage and kind of bridging the gap, in some ways, right?
Yeah, so because the color frequencies of orange and yellow do help to stimulate and promote spleen stomach energy, bringing orange into your home environment can be helpful. And we'll talk about yellow in particular, and like I said, there's so much crossover between the two because they're both earth element, but it can be super easy. Oh, and remind me to talk about the autumn and seasonal stuff, because I want to come back to that. So especially in winter months, like having warming colors in your home environment actually makes you feel physically warmer. So and we talked about this a little bit in the last one, where I talked about how easy it is to change your whole color palette in your home. I mean, in certain rooms, obviously. And just by changing the throw cover, the blanket that you put over the back of your sofa, or changing the colors of the pillowcases that are on your sofa, or, even you can go as far as like changing out your area rugs, which I've done. I have like summer area rugs and winter area rugs, depending on the colors that I want to promote in my living room, for example. You can do the same thing in your bedroom, wherever you are spending time in your office. And again, in your office, having colors like orange and yellow stimulates creativity and mental energy. I feel like we should talk a little bit about yellow, so I can
go ahead and pull it in.
Okay. So let me see if there's anything.
I'm kind of tapping into the frequencies, and I do love that we're going to touch upon autumn, because there is a wholeness that your body feels during autumn, even with like the color of squashes, or even ingesting, right, an orange squash. There's if your spleen or stomach is off, you can feel the immediate nutritious, like the nutrition effects that the body's really picking up on. And so again, knowing and understanding color frequency is really powerful to us, because it's something we're dealing with every day. And if we're having all these chronic conditions all the time, just adding a few things to the kitchen or the home can, really be self-healing in some form.
It is, yeah.
It's not going to
Yeah,
go to
and
the root of the problem, but it is helpful
well,
to,
it'll support that system though that's deficient. So, and speaking of food, because we can have a whole section about that as well. So, when you tapped in about squash, there are certain foods. So in my community, the REDjuvenator community that everybody gets a free membership to, when they buy their REDjuvenator, they get to learn all of this stuff because I have a free healing and guidance support community where everybody gets free personalized healing guidance and support, but they get to learn all this stuff about the energetic aspects of foods and the foods that support the energy systems that they are deficient in. So squash, sweet potatoes, pumpkins are in the squash family, but any kind of squash, sweet potatoes and potatoes all nourish spleen and stomach energy. They're really phenomenal. So that's one of the things when I tell people, if you've got these energy systems that are out of balance, or the spleen stomach energy system in particular, eat more yams, sweet potatoes, pumpkin, regular potatoes. Those all directly directly nourish that energy system and eliminate, get rid of all the refined flours and sugars and stuff like that. Because those, just like I said, they create these energy spikes and then you crash and you need more. And now I crash and people are exhausted and depleted all the time. Some of the other symptoms, I know we're jumping around because, I'm famous for that. The cognitive function, people will have brain fog. They can't focus. They can't concentrate. They have a hard time accessing memory. So memory, focus, concentration, all of that is connected with deficient spleen and stomach energy. So nourishing that energy system helps with cognitive function because people are conditioned, well, I need stuff for neurotransmitters in my brain and blah, 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 and all this stuff. It's like the neurotransmitters in your brain not working properly is a side effect, a symptom of the weak spleen and stomach energy. So you go right to the root. You heal the energy system, you put energy into that energy system, and all those symptoms that are downstream that people want to sell you a bunch of very expensive supplements for, by the way, which do little to nothing, or at best they might have a temporary thing. It's kind of like how people will, I feel tired, I feel depleted, I drink coffee and it gives me energy. Well, that's a temporary caffeine boost. That's not a permanent fix. That's why you have to keep drinking more and more coffee. And then you get desensitized. Well, now I need 2 cups a day. Well, now I need 3 cups a day to get that same energy because you get desensitized to that caffeine because it's like a bandage or like a splint or like a crutch. That's a good word for it. Right. Like where you're relying on something and it's not actually fixing the problem. It's just giving you that temporary spike. Same thing when people are, want sugar because it gives them, it gives me energy. But then you have the energy and then you have the crash. Then you have the energy and then you have the crash. And that's where those insulin, problems come in, where people then eventually get the type 2 diabetes because you're killing your, ability to digest and create sugar and the insulin in the body and all of that. The way it all interacts, Anyway, you have a question.
You always make this point, but you're making a great point. And what I want the audience to tap into is the body already knows how to be whole. We just got to assist it. And, again, going to the root really requires going to the root. There is no short-term hack for all this. And with color itself, like just getting out in the spectrums in, the very early morning and sunset time, at least you're getting some of these frequencies where if you are having all types of issues, at least give it a month where you're getting out at both times, you will see an overall difference, at least in the psyche, in the energy body will pick up a little bit. But again, it's like, it's cool to talk about these colors and share how it does deplete people, because again, the audience, you can tap in, just learning about orange and yellow today, you're going to be able to feel resistance. You're going to feel where your body needs it, just like thinking with the colors. So, there's small things here to support, but the bigger picture is just to understand that the body's vessel is so intelligent and it always wants to bring you back home. And so, again, like Leanne, your information is always such a gift, but you always do drive it back home.
Hmm.
To, the root of the situation. And it's our organs, they just want to be pure.
Hmm. Yeah, I know.
They
And it's,
they want
it,
to be able to detoxify and to, break up food and, to do their process. And we
mhm.
keep throwing in all this stuff where it's just like, think about, how much the body has to like work and expend energy to digest all the supplements, to take all these other outside things that
Mhm.
not they're probably not even a fix. It's probably a placebo. It's just like a temporary thing. But it is funny. Like I like what you said about coffee, where it's funny how fast that we build up to the second cup and it's not doing anything in the
Mhm.
third cup. It's
Yeah.
just, again, the body's fascinating in these
Yeah.
ways, but we just create all these patterns and looping cycles in the body. And as soon as you're in that distortion, just know there's the root is, something's not right with the root, of the organ that really needs to be supported and loved in all these ways. So I'll let you chime in from there.
Well, so many things that you were talking about just there. I'm like, oh, I have to remember to talk about that. And I have to remember to talk like, okay, let me see if I can remember, because there were so many things that you touched on. I'm like, oh, okay, let's talk about. So one of them is muscles. So muscles in the body are also controlled by spleen stomach energy. So when people have a hard time building muscle or holding muscle, that's weak spleen stomach energy. Oh, and again,
I
because I
love
can talk
hearing
about
this because muscle is
yes.
such a vehicle to the body, like the fascia and the muscle. And so
Hmm.
I didn't realize how connected it is to the spleen and the
Yeah. So and again, like everything you're saying, I'm like, okay, now we talk about that. Okay, I know. Okay. And okay, but let's go back to muscles. So
Okay.
muscles that you can't build them. Like even if people are going to the gym, this happens a lot when people get older and they're like, I just can't build muscle anymore. I can't hold muscle. And then they think that, oh, I need more protein. I need all these things. I need these superfoods. I need all this stuff, you know. Oh, and also remind me to talk about pharmaceuticals. That's another one. So then you think, okay, well, I just need to work out more. I need to lift heavier weights. And you might get that temporary boost, like build of muscle where it like puffs up the muscle, but then it's like you can't build any muscle. That's weak spleen and stomach energy. So one of the things about the green juice, one of the treatments that does target spleen, stomach energy, and liver, gallbladder. The REDjuvenator, I mean, people use it all the time for beautifying the skin on their face and all of that stuff, and it helps with wrinkles and gets, boosts collagen. The Green Juvenator in particular, we started realizing this early on when we had the little mini research group. When you do treatments on your face, it actually boosts the muscle in your facial muscles, which is when people have sagging skin on your face, a lot, the way bigger portion of the reason for the sagging is because the muscles underneath have gotten deflated. So it's like having a deflated balloon that then gets all wrinkled because there's not enough air in there. The muscles are what hold up the face. And when your muscles lose their muscle mass, and you can stimulate them to like all of a sudden instantly perk up again, and then the muscles are nice and full. Just like if you lift a barbell and do 10 repetitions and then you see your bicep, it's like, oh, nice and boosted. But that won't hold if you don't put energy into the spleen stomach energy system. So this is where people were seeing, like, it's like you do a treatment on your face and then all of a sudden your cheek muscles that were down here, now they're like puffed up, like they're boosted again. Like they're so it's like this instant facelift thing. So you have these nice full cheeks again, where when people get older,
Right.
they kind of get like this, where that, because it's the muscles, and they've been so conditioned to think it's your skin, it's the collagen. That's part of it. But the way bigger part of the reason for sagging and for losing that volume in your face, it's not just collagen. The bigger thing is the muscles behind the skin are just flaccid. So
Right.
they just sag. That's why even, if you do have facial muscles and you have like you get very little sleep or whatever, you can see how that will have an instant effect on your face where the muscles in the face can just go bleh, because
Right.
you're exhausted or depleted or whatever. But you can like revive that again by stimulating that energy system that controls the muscles. So it's the same thing with the muscles everywhere in your body. Oh, and also the muscles in the veins and arteries, the muscles that
Mm.
hold the blood in the veins. So varicose veins, spider veins, right? That's what they're called, right?
Mhm.
Spider veins.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And varicose veins, that you get those, that's related to weak spleen and stomach energy. Again, because the muscle walls of those veins are not able to hold the blood. So the muscles themselves are not able to contract and expand the way that they're supposed to. So the muscle walls get flaccid, and then you get these bulging veins where the blood going through and then they're pushing up to the surface of the skin. So then people will go and, well, I'm just going to pull out all my veins. Oh my God. Like, no, don't do that. Don't pull out your veins. Just
Right.
fix
I
the problem. Fix
know.
the root of the problem. I mean, these things that people do, these such archaic and barbaric invasive surgeries, or I have sagging skin on my face. So then they'll go and get these facelifts where they look like this. And, of course, it's not as bad as it used to be where people would get addicted to doing, and they'd have these surgeries and they'd be like looking
Right.
like this. And then Botox injecting toxic substances so you don't have wrinkles. The muscles on your forehead, which these will get bunched up and you'll get this permanent pinching kind of effect in that, the number 11 and things, that's from toxicity in liver gallbladder energy system combined with spleen. So the muscles are in this hyper contracted state. So then
Mhm.
you get these horizontal lines or vertical lines or both. You usually will see it up here where people get that permanent frown thing. I used to have it. I was, when I had severe toxicity in liver gallbladder, literally in my physical liver gallbladder system and energy system from chronic stress and PTSD growing up in a traumatic childhood home. But anyway, so I used to have, when I was younger, well, before the really until I got the REDjuvenator and started using that. Well, I created the REDjuvenator, but I have benefited as much from it myself as other people have around the globe. So, but yeah, I used to have these constantly contracted muscles in my forehead that were partly from weak spleen, stomach energy, and toxicity in the liver gallbladder energy system. So, but people will go and, get these injections to relax the muscles and then they have no facial expression, but it's like you're putting neurotoxins into your body. And no, they don't just stay where you put them. They might tell you they do, but that stuff, anything you inject into your body gets circulated throughout the entire body. So there's a lot of mythology, especially in the beauty industry, where all this stuff, they make so much money from selling you these extremely expensive face creams. It's like, here, put this on your skin. It will like tighten your skin and it will feed the skin. It's like the skin is not the problem. The sagging skin and all of that is downstream from what the root of the problem is. So, the weak muscle,
Right.
facial sagging, that sort of thing, poor collagen production. That's all. You don't address it. I mean, you can get this again. It'll be like you can get these creams they'll tighten up your skin. It's temporary. It's not a lasting effect because you're treating the symptom or you're trying to treat it, just like drinking more and more cups of coffee. And then same thing with pharmaceuticals. You get when people are taking pharmaceuticals for different whatever it is, you'll see that, well, you're no longer responding to this drug. So either they have to switch your drug or they have to increase your dosage, and they keep increasing. And all of those drugs, every single pharmaceutical drug is extremely toxic. It might be trying to do one thing in the body to suppress a particular symptom or to, keep your blood pressure down or whatever. It's targeting one specific symptom. They always create a whole, plethora of new problems. And then you need another drug to treat the symptoms and problems that were created from the first drug. And then you need another drug to create the symptoms and problems from the second drug, and so on and so on and so on. And it's a very effective model for keeping people addicted to their drugs and keeping adding more and more drugs. It's a profit-driven industry. They make a lot of money from you never getting better and always getting worse and needing more medications, drugs, and surgery. So
Well,
you
also,
always want to get off all of the drugs. And it's the same with
yeah,
supplements.
and they take away from the experience of being
Mhm,
human because again,
mhm,
there is a root cause to why these areas aren't functioning properly. And,
mhm,
if we can go in and really, work out the belief system, because a lot of this is just, whatever trauma lies in the body,
mhm,
it comes with time, and there's usually a specific um something in our lives that created these triggers, but they're going to keep looping and looping until it completely depletes the organ. And so
mhm,
if we're taking all these outside pieces, we're never going to get to the root of what is really going on, and we're never going to know ourselves in our full, like, authentic form of how the body can perform. Again, we're only
mhm,
using like 10 to 15% of our DNA. This body
mhm,
is biologically so intelligent and always trying to bring
mhm,
us back home, but we're hyper focused on all these generic things, that never once look at the root. It's
mhm,
preventive. Well, how
mhm,
preventive,
mhm.
how's preventive
I know.
going? Where we
You're borderline going to get high blood pressure. So let's start you on this drug now, just as a preventive measure, so you
because
don't
you're
get
12.
this
Just
symptoms.
kidding.
Instead of like, okay, well, how about eat some real food and get your butt up off the sofa and go for a walk around the block, but they won't tell you that. It's like, here, take this drug, because the Western medical industry is, again, controlled by big pharma. The curriculum in all medical schools is controlled
Right.
by big pharma.
Yeah.
So they are propagating and teaching and spreading this misinformation that's all driven to get people to take more drugs, more surgeries, and they want you to believe that there's a quick fix for everything. Yes, you can go and eat all the Twinkies you want and just come and take this pill. Come to me and I'll give you another pill. And you want to go to McDonald's and eat all that non-food full of garbage? Go
Mhm.
ahead. We know it's addictive, and we know that they put all this stuff in to make you keep wanting to go and eat it because it's by design. So just don't,
Yeah.
go ahead and eat all that garbage and then come and get a pill and we'll take care of you. So,
But it's amazing too. Like, again, it's really up to each and every one of us to be accountable. Like, yes, we're
mhm,
being fed some really fascinating narratives out there, but you can sense what is not working because
mhm.
you feel like crap.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
so,
know. Why are you
you know,
tired all the time? Why do you feel
it,
like you don't want
yeah,
to get off the sofa? Well, I'm just too
there,
tired.
there
I can't
is,
go for a walk. I'm exhausted, but
right,
I
there
can
is
go,
just
yeah.
accountability. And
Let me go to the drive-through to McDonald's. Sorry.
well, I know you can go to Starbucks 5 times a day and get all that
Uh-huh.
energy to the spleen.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
just kidding.
I know. And then people don't have any money to spend on the real food. I can't afford organic food because it's like I have no money. It's like, oh, but five times a day dropping $5 or $6 or whatever at Starbucks, and then there goes all your money. It's like, yeah, but I need my Starbucks. I need my Starbucks. Then you don't need my Starbucks. But I can't afford real
And
food. I
that's
can't.
why you
No.
you
And I
gotta
don't have
love,
time to cook either.
yeah,
Yeah.
you gotta love the human behavior. Like, you know, it is comical and
Mhm.
it's fun and playful, but it doesn't feel good to have dis-ease by any means. We all go through the aches and pains of feeling terrible. And
Mhm.
again, I think let's jump into yellow. Like, let's talk about
Okay.
yellow.
All right, so yellow, which you can imagine, is an uplifting, energizing color also. So red being the most energizing, most stimulating, orange being less than red, orange being more than yellow. So it's like red, orange, yellow. It's still one of the uplifting, energizing colors. So all three of these imaginary colors right here, red, orange, and yellow, are uplifting, energizing. Cheerful color. It stimulates appetite and digestion. The yellow color in particular stimulates appetite and digestion. So the reason that yellow is always used in fast food logos along with red, they're almost always red and yellow, is because red gets you to do everything more quickly. It's an uplifting, energizing, positive color, makes you think more quickly, eat more quickly, order more quickly, do everything more quickly. It's positive experience. Yellow actually stimulates your appetite. So it actually makes you hungrier than you would be otherwise. When you go into that fast food place and you see all this yellow around, because then it's like, oh, now I'm even more hungry than I thought I was before, because I'm being, stimulated by all this yellow. So, and it's cheery and positive. So people, again, in addition to the stuff that they actually put into the food, loosely termed when you're talking about junk food, to make you want to come back and eat more and more of it. And that, not to mention the sugar spikes and stuff like that you're getting. Like we could have a whole conversation about just the stuff that's in junk food, and how it's designed to keep people coming back for more. But so it makes you hungrier. So you order more and you eat more. But the good side of that, the good side, not in the junk food, because again, we talked about in the last one how color is used very cleverly in marketing and in logos and that sort of thing. And it can influence us in a good way. It can also manipulate us, because people, they don't understand how these colors are very consciously chosen to have a desired effect in viewer. So again, yellow in fast food logos to make you hungrier, or to stimulate, oh, I see yellow, now I'm hungry. So but on the healthy side, yellow will, again, it is good for stimulating appetite. When people have weak spleen and stomach energy, they often don't feel hungry. They might crave sugary stuff, but they're not feeling like the normal hunger, or they might feel the opposite end, like hungry all the time. So you can have, there's always two ends of the spectrum. With every imbalance for each energy system, you can either go to one extreme or you can go to the other. And so it can be complete lack of appetite. So people that are, that are very thin can also have weak spleen and stomach energy. I'm just never hungry. And when I do eat, I don't take in the nutrients from the food. So you get skinnier and skinnier. And I used to be there also, where it's like no appetite, and when I would eat, it's like it couldn't gain any weight, couldn't build muscle. And then you start nourishing those energy systems, and then all of a sudden you can eat and take in the nutrients from the food and like actually utilize them, and then build muscle, because you're stimulating spleen and stomach energy. So where was I going? Oh, with yellow. Okay. Staying on that, appetite. Oh, there's a very funny story. Actually, one of my customers had told me this a few years ago, that they worked at a daycare facility with it was very young babies. So it was, I don't remember why they had all these babies in this one room. But anyway, somebody got this great idea to repaint the room that all the babies were in. And they decided to paint the room yellow. And as soon as they painted the room yellow, they were like constantly having to change diapers. I mean, these babies were pooping. So it also stimulates, evacuation and like getting, digestion, and getting you to have amazing bowel movements. But they're like, what the heck happened? We're like constantly changing diapers. These babies are pooping, because they painted the walls yellow. So that's another thing about the REDjuvenator, that one of the things that we universally got reports on before launching them, that you put it on your abdomen, and oh my God, you think you have good digestion and good, elimination, and you're having super poop, but healthy poops, like really healthy poops. So I didn't finish the part when I was talking about what's an actual healthy bowel movement, because a lot of times I hear this all the time. Oh, I have really healthy bowel movements. Yeah, I've got good. They're good. And I'm like, well, describe them for me. Is it like, people are like, oh, do you want me to talk about my poop? Like, yes, I want to know what they look like. So I tell people, the way you know if you have healthy bowel movements, they come out easily. They're nice formed, solid poops, not little chunks or little pellets or long extruded cigars. Like, because people are like, no, I have like a big bowel movement. A long extruded cigar, that means soft stool, which is weak spleen and stomach energy. And a lot of people think, oh, that's a healthy bowel movement. And, my poops are always like a long extruded cigar. It's like if you have a really healthy bowel movement, you need one piece of toilet paper like that to clean yourself. So if you need more than that, that means you have weak spleen and stomach energy, kind of, if that makes sense. Of course, you could have like severe constipation
If you're
be the
feeling
other.
good,
But
you'll
most
save
people,
money.
what?
I said
On
it's
your,
for those who are feeling good, they'll save money.
yeah,
Save
because
money
you don't
on
have to be
the
going to
paper.
Costco all the
Yeah,
time and getting
yeah.
your toilet paper
But
fixed.
no, that I
Yeah.
mean that makes complete sense. And
Hmm.
again, it is a good way to start checking in with ourselves because,
Hmm.
pooping is a big issue for a lot of people. And,
Hmm.
the spleen and the stomach area just are not getting what they need these days.
Yeah.
And again, it's incredible to know just even what a little bit of sunshine will do to regulate the circadian rhythm,
Hmm.
to regulate sleep,
Yeah.
to nourish the body's intelligence, where, at
Hmm.
least it'll help with some of the root cause. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's again, keep going with what you were going to say with yellow. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's good because every time, like I said, every time we start talking, then I'm like, oh, now I need to talk about that. So one thing that yellow does also, it stimulates mental clarity and cognitive function, like spleen stomach energy does in general that I was talking about. So that's where there's all this crossover because you look at what spleen and stomach energy does and what these two colors do that are they all tie in with spleen stomach energy. So um, the cognitive function, mental clarity, ability to focus and concentrate. In the yellow legal pads, I've talked about this before in some of my talks, where the yellow, looking at a yellow legal pad actually helps you to concentrate, and focus on what you've got going on the page. Who knows why they developed yellow legal pads in the first place, or if somebody just intuitively did, but they're still yellow. So and let's see, mental clarity. That's where like having yellow in your office could be a good color for this. It's an energizing color and it stimulates mental clarity. Too much yellow. So yellow, for example, in a place where you're going to be social, in a living room, for example, can actually, if there's too much yellow, it can stimulate ego because it's the mental part where people then get caught up because it's also the ego center, the personal power ego center, which is also all about spleen stomach energy. There's so much crossover. It's hard to separate these
Right.
into separate conversations because they all overlap and support each other. And that was when I started teaching about all this stuff, 17 years ago, and connecting all these things, the ancient healing modalities, what we know about these energies and energy systems in our body, that are completely separated from scientific research. Like they don't ever make these cross connections. So I brought in scientific research to support what we know from these ancient healing modalities, like yellow being the, stimulating mental energy. And where was I going with that? I was going to, again, because there's all this overlap. So
Well,
Claire, we already talked about spleen.
I
Okay.
have a question about orange and yellow. Like
Mm-hmm.
red has infrared, mid-infrared, far, near. Does orange and yellow, do they fall under any of that, or is it just a frequency of orange and yellow, like the spectrum?
No, infrared is completely different from red. Near
Okay.
infrared, I think we talked about this
We
last
did talk
time.
about it
So
last podcast, but more like for orange and yellow, does orange and yellow, is there any kind of crossover with them to understand?
well, yeah, okay. Thinking, do I have a picture of the electromagnetic spectrum? I don't, but so it's a linear, the electromagnetic spectrum is a series of frequencies. So they're actual numeric, been assigned nanometers or hertz, depending on which system you're using. So longer wavelengths. So if we're talking about red, those have longer wave, like they're literally a wave. We talk about, again, quantum physics, we know that light acts as both a particle and a wave, depending on what you're doing and how you're observing it. Anyway, that whole different discussion. But anyway, when we're talking about the lengths of the waves, we're talking about the color frequency that they actually come through. So the light coming from the sun is coming down in waves. So you've got some red waves that are long. You've got some blue waves that are shorter. So the wavelength is literally the length of the wave, one cycle like that. So A shorter wavelength is like higher like that. A longer wavelength is like that. So like, you know, waves in the ocean that are undulating, or big, you know, I don't know if that's a good analogy, but anyway, so longer wavelengths. So red in the visible light spectrum is the longest wavelength. So we're talking like, you know, 600 to 660, 670. I can't remember the exact. There's so many different systems. They're like, you know, 600, 610, then you're in red, but now you're in orange. So yes, there is like, they blend into each other. So if you're painting and you mix red and yellow together, you can put more red and a little bit of yellow and you'll get a reddish orange. If you add in some more yellow, it's going to become more of a pure orange, like an orange, you know, an orange fruit. If you add even more yellow, now you're going to have a yellowish orange. So like this is a more yellow orange. This is a more red orange. So there's more red in this orange. There's more yellow in this orange, but they're both orange. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Same thing with the spectral colors coming from the sun. So there's a whole series, you know, from 400 to 700 nanometers, more or less. That's the visible light spectrum. 400 nanometers is in the violet. 700 is the top end of the red. So longer wavelengths, higher number, higher nanometers. Okay. Infrared means below red. So you've got, and this is where it's like, again, because I've been talking red, orange, yellow, but let's talk about it like this. Red, because if you think in terms of the chakras, even though this is more energizing, red corresponds to root chakra. So that base chakra energy. So it's a very physical energy. We talked a lot about this when we talked about red last time. But okay, so now let's go from this direction. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Infrared literally means below red. Infra means below. So infrared is all this stuff that's below the red, and it's invisible. Visible light starts at red. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. That's the light that you see coming from the sun. You think it's white light because when you combine red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet light together, it becomes white light. Some of my talks on my YouTube channel, I actually go through and I have visual, you know, representations of all this. So on my slideshows. So the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet combine to form white light. All you need to make white light is red, green, and blue. So when you have RGB screens, like all of our LED screens, the red, green, and blue, the red, green, and blue, you can make all the colors from red, green, and blue. So LED screens that will have LEDs that are red, green, and blue, and you get all the colors on your screen. But so you need a minimum of red, green, and blue to make white light. So that's why any white light bulb, whether it's an incandescent bulb, a fluorescent bulb, an LED bulb, any light emitting source that emits white light is a combination at a minimum of red, green, and blue. And I think we talked about this last time. People have tried to demonize LEDs. They're blue light. It's like they've got blue light. All white light bulbs of any kind have blue light in them. They all have blue light. Incandescents have red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. LEDs can have all that as well, full spectrum. Anyway, so whole different topic of conversation. But so going back to the infrared question, infrared just means below red. Everything that's below red, they're longer wavelengths than the red, and they're invisible. So the visible light spectrum is red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Below red is infrared. Physicists are very pragmatic. They don't come up with flowery names for things. It's like infrared. We discovered there's, I can't remember the original scientist that discovered this a long, long time ago, that there is a frequency below visible red, and he called it infrared. And then realized afterwards that, okay, we've got red here, below red, we've got infrared. But then they realized, oh, there's different categories of infrared. So near infrared means it's closest to red. It's the nearest infrared to the red. So near infrared, mid infrared, and far infrared. Near infrared gets absorbed by the cells. and the mitochondria in the body. But mid and far infrared are heat emitting. They're thermal infrared, so they actually feel hot when like if you have an infrared bulb, those are mid and far infrared predominantly. They might have a tiny, tiny amount of near infrared, but they're predominantly mid and far infrared. They're very hot. They get absorbed by the water in the body. Mid and far infrared get absorbed. They're even longer wavelengths. They go through deeper and they get absorbed by the water in the body. Whereas near infrared is similar to red in that it gets absorbed by the actual cells, but the other ones get absorbed by the water. They heat up the water in your body. It's like a microwave effect. So you're putting this radiation into your body that is mid and far infrared, creating heat that gets absorbed by the water molecules in the body, and it heats you from the inside out, just the same way a microwave works. When you put food into a microwave, you have to have water in it, because that's how the microwave works. The microwave energy gets absorbed by the water molecules in the food, creates agitation in the water molecules, and that's what creates the heat. So you cook your turkey from the inside out in a microwave or whatever it is. If you put a bowl of dry flour in the microwave, it won't get hot because there's no water in there. You can actually damage the microwave. So you need to have water in the food that you put into the microwave, because it's the radiation, microwave radiation, getting absorbed by the water molecules that creates that heat from the inside out. It's the exact same mechanism that you have when you have mid and far infrared, thermal infrared, that get absorbed by the water molecules in the body that create the heat in your body from the inside out. So they're heating up the water inside. That's where people start sweating in these infrared saunas. They don't have the unpleasant experience of getting warm from the inside out, because we don't have these, nerve centers inside our body. So that's where people can actually throw themselves very quickly out of balance by using an infrared sauna, because you already have a lot of heat in your body already, because when liver gallbladder energy isn't working properly, it's like an engine revving constantly. So you have too much heat in your body already. And then you go and get into an infrared sauna, and it's like, it's like throwing gasoline on the fire. So it creates even more problems. That's where a lot of times people it's like, now I'm starting to get these rashes. I think it's a detox effect, right? So, like it's toxins. No, it's like it's too much heat. Your body's like you're putting fuel in the fight where there's already a fire. So, but yeah. So,
yeah.
Sorry, I just heard some strange sound.
No,
I'm
so glad that you broke this down again, because we did speak about it the last time, but it's super fascinating. It's like, again, this is such good information out there, because I don't think a lot of people understand what they're getting into with their body, right? With a lot of these red light therapies. Like, yes, in the bigger scheme of things, it is a good biohack, but really look at, what is the state of your body? One, two, really look into what these technologies are and make sure that you're getting the right information, because
right.
Well,
there's the bigger problem is a lot of mismarketing or generous marketing around things like infrared saunas, because of the fact that red and near infrared do stimulate mitochondrial function in the cells, which is the batteries, the powerhouses of the cells, the mitochondria. Red and near infrared do that. Infrared saunas are not red or near infrared. They might have a tiny amount of near infrared. And even if they say that they add in near infrared LEDs or whatever, unless you're like sitting right in front of it, I mean, the percentage of near infrared that you're going to get in any infrared sauna is minuscule. What you're going to get is a lot of mid and far infrared. The reason that they say, oh, this is a near infrared sauna, which is like, it's like somebody giving you a 5-gallon, or 10-gallon bucket of water and putting in 1 drop of orange juice and saying that's a bucket of orange juice. It's like, no, it's almost all water and there's like 1 drop of orange juice. Well, yeah, technically there's some orange juice in there. So yeah, let's just call it near infrared sauna, because we've got 1 drop of near infrared in there and all the rest is mid and far infrared. And a lot of these people that are selling these devices don't even understand the mechanism and how they can actually throw somebody out of balance. Other people do perfectly fine, but a lot of people actually get worse in them. So I have a whole thing on my website. If you go to catalyticcolor.com, there's a whole discussion about this where I explain in detail about, you know, when to know if an infrared sauna is, or a near infrared sauna, very, again,
That's
loosely
important right
described.
now too, because
Is
they've been popular for like the last 10 years, but it's very being pushed a lot by the well-known biohackers these days.
right. Well, and all of that, as you know, it's like affiliate marketing. So they're getting kickbacks to push those products, and they get a lot of money if they, every one of those, you know, you spend thousands of dollars or tens of thousands in some cases to get one of these infrared saunas in your home because you've heard all the marketing hype. And I'm not saying that they're bad for everybody. It's just that they're bad for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think, you know, again, that's the good thing about these conversations is, you know, despite everything on the outside, you know, really what Leanne and I are doing is getting, you know, everybody, it's just time to think and to trace energy and to really, you know, tap to what is going on with the body first before you bring in all these outside stuff, because, you know, none of these biohacks or quick fix are going to adjust the root cause, and the root cause can be so simplified by elimination of
I
these
know it's not
things
about
that are
putting more
supposed
stuff
to
in,
be
it's about
good.
take stuff out. Yeah, take out the stuff that shouldn't be there in the first place. But yeah, so again, you know, I tell people, it's like, if you're thinking about getting an infrared sauna, and the other thing, infrared saunas are new technology. This is not something, you know, well, people are like, oh, we've been using saunas for thousands of years. No, we haven't been using infrared saunas for thousands of years. We've been using hot rock saunas for thousands of years. And those have a built-in mechanism where you can tell if you're getting too hot, because it's like, so compare a regular oven to a microwave oven.
Right.
A regular oven, you want to make your Thanksgiving turkey, you put it into a regular oven and it bakes from the outside in. It cooks from the outside in. So that heat is out here. It's not injecting heat into your turkey. A microwave will heat the water inside the turkey and cook the turkey from the inside out. And if anybody has ever had a microwave turkey, you know that they taste disgusting because it's like rubbery. Anyway, so because of what it does to the turkey and the muscle and stuff like that. But anyway, so you want to bake your turkey from the outside in. You do that in a regular oven, or you do it over a fire pit. But all of those are, or, you know, a smoker, whatever. All of those are heating from the outside in. That's what a hot rock sauna does. That's what we've been using for thousands of years. You go into a building and you've got rocks and you put water on the rocks and it makes it hot and you get like heated from the outside in. That's why it's often unpleasant for people. If they have too much heat in their body already, they'll be like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to explode, especially if their pores aren't working properly, because your pores are not for making you sweat. I mean, that's one of their functions, but they're designed to regulate your body temperature. So yes, they're supposed to sweat, but a lot of times people's pores don't open and close properly. That's lung energy. But anyway, so they go into a hot rock sauna and they'll be like, oh, this is unpleasant. I hate this, you know. But then they go into an infrared sauna and they're like, oh, I can handle this because it doesn't feel bad because it's heating you from the inside out, like microwaving that turkey. The turkey is like, you know, like getting cooked from the inside out. That as opposed to you put it into a hot rock sauna or a regular oven, gets cooked from the outside in. So we have this biofeedback mechanism. It's like you're in a hot rock sauna and it feels unpleasant. You know, it's like, okay, I'm getting too hot. I need to get out. Then go do a cold plunge. You can actually train your pores to open and close this way. You go into a hot rock sauna, get heated up. You know, maybe you can only stand 5 minutes. Then you do a cold plunge, close up those pores again. Then the next time you go into the hot rock sauna, they open up a little bit more and then you start sweating a little bit. And then you like, but maybe you can only handle 7 minutes and then you go do a cold plunge. So this is what we have been using for thousands of years. That's a healthy way of using a sauna. In infrared sauna, it's like cooking your turkey in the microwave. Completely different technology. It's not the same thing. So where you hear it's like, oh, saunas are so good for you, yes, hot rock saunas, yes, they can be, because you have that built-in mechanism and biofeedback to know when you've had too much and when you need to get out, do another cycle, cold, hot, like
Well,
that.
so
You can
it's
actually,
even with the sun, now that we're talking about red, orange, and yellow, like you can feel those spectrums when you're laying in the sun, and
Mhm,
you know when enough is
exactly.
enough. So
Exactly. And that's where it's like, I'm getting so hot. And you can also feel like the heat where your skin is like starting to feel hot. And now, now you're starting to get a sunburn. If you're feeling too hot, it's like, get out of the sun. Okay. Get in the water, cool off, stop the heating, response. And then, go back tomorrow, get some more sun. But we have these built-in responses to the way that the healing energies come from sunlight and nature, that we know when, okay, I've had too much sun now, I need to get out of the sun. So, but if slathering on toxic sunscreen and you're preventing all those healing color energies from getting into your body and into your cells, you're not only putting chemicals on your skin that literally become carcinogenic when they're exposed to sunshine. Literally, I mean, not natural sunscreens that are zinc based or whatever, but that create more like a physical barrier. But the bigger problem, well, that is a big problem because people are putting toxic chemicals on their skin that become carcinogenic when they're exposed to the sun, and then that gets absorbed into your bloodstream. Even if you're using a natural sunscreen, you still need your minimum daily requirement of sunshine on your skin. You might be in a super hot, intense sun place like by the equator, and maybe your ancestors are from Ireland, so you have super fair skin. So you might be able to handle 30 seconds in that kind of an environment where it's like, I can only be out in the sun for 30 seconds before, like then I have to cover up. But you still need, most people are in that kind of an extreme situation. But the reason that people have fair skin in places like Ireland, Scotland, what's up north, Norway, all of that, where they're super fair, light pigments or red hair or blonde hair, blue eyes, it's because the available sunlight was much lower up there. So you have these systems where you have fair skin, blue eyes, light hair. So the little bit of sunlight you can take in as much as possible. You don't have any of those protective barriers. Dark hair, dark eyes, dark skin are the opposite, where your ancestors are from somewhere where there was a lot of sun, and you have, the darker your skin, that's more of a protective factor because the dark skin is blocking that sunshine. Fair skin is like, give me as much as I can because there's so little up here in the north, and southern, like equator, you have dark skin because there's so much sun. So now I need to protect myself from too much sun. So I get dark skin, dark wiry hair that keeps the sun off my scalp, like the thick, hair that prevents the sun from getting through. So, and dark skin on the body everywhere except the parts where you're not getting any sun exposure because your palms aren't, dark, just the backs where you're going to get the sun. So it's evolution, how we evolved to live and thrive under this sunlight, that where we evolved as human beings, our ancestors evolved. So somebody coming from, like a country that is close to the equator or somewhere close to the equator that has very dark skin, they move to Ireland, they're never going to be able to get enough sunshine because they have that built-in protective barrier that's like saying, I'm prepared for super intense sunshine. And now you move somewhere like, Norway, and there's very little sunshine. So you're like, even if you were out all day long, you probably still wouldn't be able to get enough for your needs because you have that built-in barrier. Or maybe you could, I don't know. I've never done an experiment, but that's where, people with darker skin tend to be even more vitamin D deficient than people with fair skin, because even if they're out in the sun, they're still not getting enough of the sun exposure to make enough vitamin D. So, and the same thing. A lot of them are still putting on sunscreen because it's like, well, I don't want to burn, and sunshine is bad for you because the media tells me that it's going to give me cancer. So even people with dark protective skin will slather on sunscreen because they've been conditioned to think that that's what they need to do to avoid getting cancer, where it's like, nope, you're going to pretty much guaranteed to get cancer if you don't get sunshine. So
with
anyway, we
that
kind of
said,
got off on a tangent.
yeah, no, but to kind of bridge, now that we've kind of gone on a tangent with all the things, with that said, you know, everyone is different, obviously, wherever we're born, whatever our backgrounds are, but to get a little bit of sunlight, you know, what do you think is to ease people so they don't have to freak out, you know, what is necessary, but to get sunlight, do you think the best hours are sunrise and sunset, getting about 15 minutes per, or like, what are your thoughts on that?
Like I said, there are benefits to getting sunshine in the morning and in the at dawn and at dusk, because those longer wavelengths, red, orange, and yellow, are coming through. But there are also massive benefits to getting, you know, and they say between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., but that will change every day of the year. It's not, there's no, and it will change where you are, depending on where you are. Like the 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. is because that's when the sun is going to be highest in the sky. So you want the shorter wavelengths of the UVB to be able to come through. They can only come through when the sun gets high enough in the sky. UV means ultraviolet. Remember I was saying about red, infrared. Infrared means below red. Red is longer wavelengths. Infrared is even longer than red. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, then that's visible. Invisible, ultraviolet means above violet. So ultraviolet A and B, those are the ones that we get. You want to get those on your skin. There are benefits to them. The UVB is what you need to be able to make vitamin D in the skin. So those are super short wavelengths. So you've got the super long with the infrared, and then you've got the super short, because blue, none of those UVB wavelengths will come through until the sun is high enough in the sky. Depending on the time of year, the sun might be too low on the horizon anyway. You're like, you know, in the middle of summer, the sun is gonna be like this. So at 12 noon, you look straight up. I mean, that would be like at the equator, you know, you look straight up and the sun is directly overhead. Depending on how much farther north or south you are, the sun will be, okay, well, it's not directly overhead at noon. It's kind of like right there. So again, but the amount of atmosphere that the sunshine and these color frequencies have to go through determines which ones come through. So UVB, even in the winter months, in some places, there won't be any UVB that comes through because the sun is not high enough in the sky. So if you're in Canada and it's the middle of winter, there's no UVB coming through. So you're not going to be able to produce vitamin D the way your body's designed to do by getting UVB on your skin, because there isn't any coming through at that time of year. That's why and I want to talk about the autumn thing again. Okay. So there are benefits to getting sun all the different times of day. So if you get 10 minutes in the morning, then go out and get 5 minutes, again, if you have super fair skin, you don't want to burn. So there's no cookie cutter answer, because it depends on where you are on the planet and where your skin evolved from. So do you have dark, like I'm half Italian and half Slovak. My mother was very fair skin, blue eyes, blonde hair. I got more of the Italian side. So my father had olive skin, dark eyes, and dark hair. So I have more of the ability to tan. I get very dark if I lay out under the sun, whereas my sister got more of the fair thing. So she gets burned if she's out under the sun. She can tan eventually, but she's more likely to. So my mother, because we were a combination of the Slovak and Italian. Anyway, so there are benefits to getting sun at all different times of the day. Depending on how your skin is, where you evolved, that will determine what your minimum daily requirement is, because you don't want to get a burn. So the first time you go out, if your grandmother came from Ireland and you have fair skin and red hair, you live in Austin, Texas, where it's the sun is quite strong, you might only be able to spend 5 minutes on that first day of sunshine. But then you're going to start stimulating melanin production, and it's going to create a little bit of a protective factor. So then the next day you might be able to get 7 minutes, and so on and so on. If you come from an Italian background like me, Southern Italian, then you can maybe spend 20 minutes or 25 minutes or even like 30 or 40 minutes the very first time you get sun. And then it's like, that's enough. And then the next day you can do more, but you want the minimum daily requirement. So let's talk about the seasonal stuff, because I wanted to talk about the colors of orange and yellow and why so when autumn is coming, the colors of the trees, leaves change color, right? They start dying, they become red, orange, and yellow. Those are the colors of autumn. People will tend to get hungrier when the autumn is coming, and they're like, oh my God, I start gaining weight in the autumn, I hate it. And then it's the holidays and I've got all this food and I get so fat, and then they're like freaking out and your metabolism slowed down. That's another thing about orange and yellow in particular actually speeds up metabolism, but because it does that whole digestive thing, it stimulates lymphatic flow, a couple other things that I didn't mention. But when we are going into the autumn months, we naturally get more of an appetite. We start to get hungrier because of the fact that we evolved in places where it's like in the winter months, there's no available food. So look at what squirrels do in the autumn. In the summer, they're running around and playing, and they're eating here and there. But as soon as the fall starts coming and the days start getting shorter, the squirrels go into hyper eating and storing of nuts mode. They're eating as much as they can to get fattened up for winter, and they're taking as many nuts and hiding them. So they'll hide them in your flower pots and everything, and then you start getting pecan trees growing in your flower pots because they planted a bunch of pecans. But anyway, that's why they're doing that, because they're getting ready, they're fattening up for winter. They're trying to save as much available energy as they can in their body, because they know that there's going to be less food in the winter. Just like we as humans, we had places, you have snow on the ground half the time, or there's nothing growing. Everything dies back in the winter. So we didn't have grocery stores. You had to grow your food. Nothing's going to grow in the winter months. So you had to grow and harvest all your food in the summer and the fall. And then you naturally have this increase in appetite where it's like your body's like, eat a lot right now because I need to get extra fat while I've got food available, because I have to be able to survive through the long winter months. So think of a bear. Bears will eat a lot and then they go into hibernation. They literally will hibernate. Hibernation is a thing where they're like sleeping most of the time. They're conserving their energy. They get as fat as they can so they have enough fat and fuel to keep them alive during the winter when there's no food for them. There's no food. There's like very little for them to eat. So they eat as much as they can when they have available food. Then they get very lethargic and tired, and they just want to sleep all the time. That's why when people in the winter months, it's like, I feel so tired all the time. I just don't want to go out. Because that's how we evolved to survive, going through those cold winter months when there's no available food. Now you go to the grocery store and you can eat anytime. So people just, you need to understand that the way that we respond to these cycles of nature and the shorter days is part of our evolution. And it's all a survival tactic, so that when you have the shorter days of winter, you're naturally going to feel like, okay, well, I really don't feel like going out because I just don't have a lot of energy. And I feel like, in the fall, I want to eat. And then we have these harvest, festivals and Thanksgiving and things like that. That's where all of that started. We have these big harvest festivals. We've got so much food in abundance right now because we harvested all the crops and everything. And now you eat lots and lots of food, get nice and fat so you can survive for the winter. So when you understand that, you don't try to fight against it, you work with it instead. Okay, well, maybe you don't need to get as fat as we used to when we were, living on the prairie, because you don't have to worry about surviving through the winter. But understanding that you're naturally going to have less energy during the winter months. Don't drink more coffee and take these stimulants and all these, you know, superfoods that are supposed to boost you and give you a bunch of energy. Think of it as like, okay, the winter months, work on projects, work on, you know, home things, work on things that are, that you can be, you know, nesting, and the things that you used to do when you can't be outside because, you know, it's so cold, you can't, there's not, you're not going to be wasting all of your precious energy that you have stored up in your body to try to stay warm outdoors when there's nothing to do out there. You're not, there's no crops to harvest or anything like that. So people would naturally stay indoors more and, you know, or work on things that don't require huge amounts of energy, because you don't want to be wasting all that energy. Because I have my preserves that I saved from the harvest, you know, crop that I put, you know, my canning and stuff like that, all the foods that I harvested, and these have to last me all winter long. So I don't want to be out running and playing in the snow and wasting a bunch of energy, you know, like, or, you know, going jogging and things like that, because I didn't have the available food to be able to, you know, have this unlimited supply of food. I had to be able to conserve my energy and my food for me and my family through the winter months. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Oh, completely.
Yeah.
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 No, I think this has been very informative on so many levels today. So I appreciate the knowledge. You know, you brought a lot to my attention, and I think for many of us, these are, you know, things we need to hear, that, you know, everything is such a fast track these days, you know, everything's such a biohack, everything is, let's bypass, you know, the body's natural systems and rhythms. And so again, you know, tapping into the colors and, you know, how we take in the intelligence of them is so important, but it also brings up so much in conversation of how we're all, you know, what we're focused and attuned to, and it allows us actually to see what types of patterns we're creating, whether they be good or bad, you know, but to get more attuned with ourselves and more aligned with going back to simplicity, you know, going back to more purity and resourcefulness. So I just appreciate you, and I applaud you for everything you always bring to my attention and to others. Because even when I sit down to edit, you know, this material, I'm always just blown away with how much we packed, you know, how much you
Even
share.
with all the tangents, yeah.
Yeah, no, it is truly a blessing. And yeah, and so I kind of just want to wrap on that. I know that we're going to continue on in the next month or two with the next colors, but I think there's just so much to take in from this. But really, I think it just, the bigger picture is giving us a major check-in with who we are, you know, the simple things of learning what the root is within all of us, that is having, it needs a little TLC, but it needs things of natural rhythm, spectrums.
Exactly. Yes. And that again, we've been so conditioned to get disconnected from nature, thinking that we're smarter than nature and we're smarter than the cycles of nature. And you can get a tomato any time of the year because, you know, it comes from wherever. You can even grow it hydroponically or whatever. But we're not actually supposed to be eating those foods that are, they're summer foods, they're fall foods, they're winter foods, they're spring foods. So eating seasonally and following the rhythms of nature and the available sunshine, it's all part of how we evolved. So understanding that and thinking, it's like, it's okay, it's winter. I can be more like of a couch potato or not feel like wasting a lot of energy. I don't need to be going out and all that. You know, I don't need to biohack myself in the months when I'm naturally supposed to be slower working on projects at home. You know, it's like the understanding, you know, or doing a self-study course or whatever it is, something that is not like, I don't need to be jumping around and going to the gym and all this stuff. I mean, it's like understanding that we are just naturally following these rhythms that are programmed into us and using that and harmonizing with that instead of trying to fight against it. That will also all
Well,
nourish, you know,
also
spleen,
bridging
stomach energy. So
bridging to the potential, but the potential is really the intelligence. It's not all this outside stuff. It's totally within us, to be
Right.
self-healing. So yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Oh,
thank
and one
you.
other thing I forgot to mention about the UVB, that very important. So you know how they say make hay while the sun is shining? It's the same thing. Make vitamin D in your body, which is a very important hormone, by the way. You make vitamin D in the body while the sun is shining. So that means spring, summer, and early fall. That's when you go and you want to get the sun on your skin, because it doesn't matter if you're getting the sun on your skin for the UVB effect in the winter, because there isn't any UVB. You
Mm,
can still get lots of benefit from getting sun on your skin in the winter months, but you're not going to be making vitamin D. So that's why you have to get the sun exposure in the summer months when you've got abundant UVB, because then you can make abundant vitamin D. We will make huge amounts of vitamin D in our body that will last, just like this squirrel hiding
mm.
his nuts, wherever he can. That vitamin D, hormone D, will stay huge amounts of it in our body that we then consume during the winter months, because we can't be producing it. Just like we're, all those preserves that you get from the autumn harvest, and you do all your canning and then it's in your pantry, you feed off of those preserves. We do the same thing with our vitamin D that stays in our body. Very different from taking an artificial supplemental vitamin D, hormone replacement, synthetic vitamin D. You can actually overdose on those. So getting natural produced vitamin D is the best way. So closing
I
on that.
love it. Well, yeah. Well,
Okay.
let's close on that. That's a lot today for the audience to really go
Like my head is
go
exploding.
reprogram
Get
yourselves.
some, yes, get your
I
REDjuvenator for
I know
that,
I
and
need
do
to
the
go on a walk
do
now
the
after
abdomen
that and get
protocol.
in the sun.
Yeah, get in the sun. Yeah.
But
And yeah, and if it's freezing cold where you are, because I don't know when this is going to get dropped, this video, but if it's freezing cold in the middle of winter,
oh right,
then
yeah, rest.
just be okay with being indoors. Yeah.
Well, is there
Okay.
any last comments you want to make of where to find you? Because I'm going to link everything in, but
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, my website, anybody, if you go to my website, I have two websites. I've got leannevenier.com, LeanneVenier.com, my first and last name. That is mostly, well, that will usually jump you over to catalyticcolor.com. Catalyticcolor.com is where all the color and light stuff is. So if you sign up to my mailing list on either website, then you get my free healing color screensavers. And then when you go to those screensavers, it gives you the information about each of the healing colors. So you can learn more about those and then actually put them on your computer screen and use them as a healing tool. So, and you can also use them as a diagnostic tool to determine which colors am I feeling particularly drawn to today or this week, which will then tell you, oh, this energy system might be out of balance because I'm really craving yellow or orange right now, or red or blue or whatever color it happens to be. So you can get all that information and then get the healing color screensavers. Download as many as you want. I recommend downloading all of them because your color cravings will change depending on what's in and out of balance. So catalyticcolor.com is CATYLTIC, a catalytic converter, but it's catalytic color, COLOR, the American spelling of color, not the British Canadian spelling, which is where I'm from, but I chose to spell it COLOR, CALATYTICCOLOR.com, catalyticcolor.com. And yeah, that's where there's lots more information on there and videos and things like that. So
Everything will be connected. And yeah, I am Shannon with Quantum Heart Conversations, and I'll link all my info on my YouTube channel. It's already here. But yeah, again, thank you for all that you do and your support and your intelligence. It's just, again, there's just so much information that you bring that gives one a lot of direction of where they can move to next. So I just appreciate that. And yeah,
thank you. And
until
thank
in a
you, Shannon. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for all the work you're doing in the world. And I always tell you, it's like amazing all the help that you're providing for so many people as well. So you know, I always say it takes a village, takes all of us, you know, doing our part. So pay it
Right.
forward, help other people.
Share where we
So whenever
can.
you can. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, love. All right, signing off. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay. Bye. Bye. Stay tuned for the next episode.
The next colors are coming.